And we are back in the studio with our guest, Ms. Ghadeer Alenizi. Ms. Ghadeer, we're back with you, and to continue our discussion, you have explained to us the situation in China and with Asian refineries, and now we would like to shift the discussion into the tankers themselves. How many tankers do you think are stuck in the Strait of Hormuz? How many of the tankers are stuck?
Yeah, the transiting activities is still constrained by the high risk in the strait. According to maritime traffic, there are 702 commercial vessels in the Arabian Gulf, 300 vessels, just oil and chemical tankers. Yeah, this equivalent to nearly 200 million barrel stuck in the Arabian Gulf.
Not moving at all?
Not moving at all. Just because of the high risk of moving and the blockade.
And lots of these tankers are probably stuck in the GCC as well,
yes.
right? Even before the blockade began.
Yeah, it has been reduced a bit with the just small amount of vessels crossing the Strait of Hormuz, but as you know, the tension is still there, so there is a very high risk to move these vessels. Yeah.
But these ships, I mean, let's assume that in the GCC we have a few hundreds, and then you mentioned now 700 in the Arabian Gulf. So what if the situation, as you mentioned earlier, if the strait opens today, how long would it take for these ships to actually pass? Because we're going to have other ships as well.
Yes.
So
yes. Okay, let me put it this way. It will create a very big traffic jam. There is a lot vessels are waiting inside the Arabian Gulf, and there is others outside want to in. So this will create a traffic jam in this region. In addition, if we are looking at the timing of the voyage itself, tankers to Asia, it takes around 25 days. Yeah, and to come back again, it takes another 25 days. This is in addition to the loading time. So here you're talking about at almost 3 months just for a tanker to offload and reload.
Yeah, that's clear. And what about, we have spoken a little bit about if this crisis prolongs for a long time, but what if it prolongs? What would countries and major consuming countries of oil would do? Would they rely on strategic reserves? Would they act individually? Would they decrease demand? What do you think they would be inclined to do?
Yeah, there's three main things, or three main actions that the countries will take. First, coordinated SPR released as the IEA and US announced previously. There are also individual actions, like in China. They just drew down their commercial and SPR stocks. India, subsidy cuts. There is some, like Trump announced, some waivers to Russian and Iranian oil on sea, just to waiver to sell these quantities. The other thing is bypassing the Strait of Hormuz by creating or finding new routes for exports. Yeah. And the demand side, like I said, subsidies, cuts, trying to control consumption, like industrial or even transportation activities, industrial activities. Government try to reduce consumption just to contain the problem. However, even these measures are taken and worked effectively, demand destruction, it will not help prices to calm down until if we have a COVID scale demand breakdown. Yeah, this is where can we see prices will maybe go down.
Oh, yeah. That's when prices would ease.
Yes.
But when I see lots of observers and energy experts, they would say that let's say the threshold would be about $80 to $90, even if things have eased because of the shortage that the world is facing. So
Yeah.
oil prices may be elevated
Yeah.
for a little bit long
It
time.
is elevated and will not see the pre-war price level till I said earlier maybe the first quarter of next year
If
or
we're
the
optimistic.
quarter after.
And especially
Yeah.
as you were mentioning, the ships would take a long time.
Yeah, a long time.
rerouting.
And yeah, I know every people they're asking, despite these measures taken just to calm down the market, why prices still increased. Okay, the SPR to be released, it takes 120 days just to release. And the flow rate, it's very low versus the real disruptions from Strait of Hormuz.
And it does not cover much.
It doesn't.
It only gives you about 20 days, 20-ish days.
Yeah, it doesn't. As I said, the release of SPR, it doesn't cover the 600 million that we are already lost in the market. Yeah, and also inventory drawdown, as I mentioned earlier, it's below the average.
Oh,
So,
below average.
Yeah, below the average, and this is expected to fall further in the coming weeks. Yeah.
Well, that's clear. Now, as you are observing the markets, okay, in the coming days, what are the things, the most important things to you that you're watching that you know oil prices would rise or fall based on them?
Okay, peace talks. Peace talks. Escalation, it will push prices higher. De-escalation, in my opinion, it will never bring prices down soon.
But these kind of measures, de-escalation and escalation, as you of course asserted, would only push the prices of the paper market.
The paper market,
right?
Yes.
But not the physical market, so it's clear to the
No,
to
it
the
will
people.
affect the paper market first because it's quickly react to the headlines.
React to the headlines.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to do anything with the dated print, which is the benchmark, and the physical market. Usually people watch the headlines and the paper market.
Yes.
That's clear. And now, Ms. Ghadeer, we'll take a quick break and we will be back with you. Davey was a quick break and we will be back. And now we're back in the studio with our special guest, Ms. Ghadeer Alenizi. Ms. Ghadeer, we're back with you and would like to ask straightforward to the ripple effect about the oil consequences of the oil prices and the increase of oil prices. Usually people look at the high oil prices as a disruption itself, but there is a ripple effect to that. So what other things besides oil that you see as being affected by the increase of oil prices? Is it cost, insurance? Is it gas? Is it petrochemicals? Or is it anything else?
Okay, it is a cumulative effect. Start with the shipping itself. Raising the freight rates, and this is the real sign of stress in the market. Second comes in the war risk insurance. It becomes higher and higher. These two factors together push energy prices higher. This includes transportation of fuels, petrochemicals, gas, and everything else. Yeah.
And would it even increase, when we speak about petrochemicals, so oil prices could also then increase the cost of food and groceries, because petrochemicals has to do with that?
Yeah, everything else that could be inflated, and it's really shock the economies.
And even the insurance companies as well at the sea, because the tankers can't go in and out by themselves unless there is an insurance company.
Yes, absolutely right.
Right?
Yes.
There's been a disruption in the insurance company.
Yeah, people, or the ship owners, they don't want even to send their ships because there is a very high risk of passing the Strait of Hormuz.
This increases.
Yes, they will not pay the billions as insurance for these ships that could be destroyed in any escalations.
So if they get destroyed, they would have to pay higher prices?
Yes, pay higher insurance prices.
That's clear. So the oil has different ripple effects, which is insurance and freight rates, you said, and petrochemicals, which is on farmers around the world, and food. and all else.
Yes.
So we'll get to that when we speak about inflation later on. But looking at the bigger picture now, there is. Do you see this as a short-term shock? We have spoken a little bit about the outlook and the consequences of this shock and how long it would take to go back to normal. But do you think this would be a short-term shock that would go away once the ceasefire, let's say, completes with a comprehensive agreement and there is efforts by international institutions to, let's say, getting things back to normal? Or does what happened in the what has happened in the Hormuz Strait has shown a deeper weakness?
Okay, I think it's not a short-term shock for the market. Why? Because I think there will be behavior changes in, with the buyers. Even if the strait reopens today, the behavior change will mainly highlighted like diversification of sources, like building storage buffer. They increased their buffer for storage, investing more in bypassing any choke points, more exposed to the real geopolitical risk. So the change in behavior itself, even if the things normalized soon.
So when you also spoke about the bypasses, I mean, Saudi Arabia and UAE, they do have bypasses.
Yes.
Saudi, the one east-west to Yanbu, to Red Sea, also Emirates.
Yes.
But they still do not account, at least for the losses in the Strait of Hormuz, right?
Yes, you're right. Even if they have the capacity, if we talk about other countries in the region, to replace what we lost in the Strait of Hormuz, they will not fully cover this disruptions. The East-West pipeline, Saudi Arabia did a great job with it. They raised the operational capacity from 770,000 barrels per day to 7 million barrels per day. And it was a quick.
This is the highest peak they reached.
They reached the peak. 5 million barrels per day were exported, and 2 million were used domestically. So it's a huge rise in yes. UAE as well. They reroute the export to Fujairah, but it is it's limited, not and it will not cover what we lost.
It's about 2 to 3 million, about that.
Let's say 20 to 30 million. 20 to 30% of the total loss.
Of the total loss.
Yes. If we are saying around 15 to 20 million barrel per day crossing the Strait of Hormuz, export from Saudi Arabia, as I said, it's 5 million. And from the Fujairah, it's 1.9 million. So in total, it's only 6 million that they restore and send to the market.
6 million out of the
20 million that's experiencing before the war.
The pre-war.
Yes.
So we're losing more than at least 15 million from the Strait of Hormuz, and we're only making up a few millions.
Yes.
Which is only minimizes the loss a bit, but still it puts these countries at better situations than the countries that do not have alternatives.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Correct?
Yes.
In terms of making products and other things.
Yes.
And what about the Iraq? Some observers say Iraq has a bypass with Turkey, but this is only short, I think, about 200,000?
No, actually the Iraqi pipeline, it is a pipeline between Kurdistan and Ceyhan port in Turkish. It is around 450 K barrel per day operational capacity. It has been stopped since March 2023. There was the legal issues through because of there is a payment issues, and Turkey should pay for Iraqi government, as they said they send exports or send quantities through the pipeline without taking permissions from Iraqi government. So the problem is not only between Iraq and Turkey. It's also inside Iraq itself, between Iraq and Kurdistan. There is a lot of issues.
And
they
it only
announced
gives little.
Yeah, it gives little, and they announced the resumption of the pipeline around maybe 250 barrel per day. But I think
Only 250 to 300,000 barrels?
Yeah, this is out of the total capacity of 450.
Out of the total?
Yes.
Out of the total capacity?
Yes.
So when we look at these numbers, we see that it accounts very little in comparison to as you said, the total loss of in comparison to the Strait of Hormuz, which needs the strait to be opened and shipping back to normal, so we can at least in the next months make up the losses made. Now let's turn our attention to the strait itself. With disruptions happening, as you mentioned, the attention turns to the supply routes and turns to the spare capacity itself. Do you think there is any institution or any producers outside the Gulf or even within OPEC Plus that can at least compensate for this disruption in any way?
Okay, as I said, Saudi Arabia is the fastest and the biggest responder. Okay, even if they have approximately 2 million barrel per day capacity, and also the Emirates, they have around 500,000 to 1 million barrel per day capacity, but the capacity itself, it is unevenly distributed between other OPEC plus countries.
It is distributed?
No, it is not the same, unevenly distributed. Yeah, it's a difference between countries inside OPEC Plus itself, and it takes sometimes just to make it operational. And like in Saudi Arabia, the 2 million, or first of all, they are compliant with the OPEC quotas, so there is a limitation of production. But even if they want to compensate for the loss that we are seeing nowadays, the 2 million of spare capacity, it will take around 30 days to be sustainable.
To be sustainable?
Yes. Yeah, it's all about timing, how to restore these missing barrels in the markets.
And we're losing on a daily basis?
We are losing on a daily basis. Even the stock draw, it's around 11 million barrel per day from the commercial and SPRs, the absorption,
And the strategic reserves, you mentioned a little bit about them earlier. You mentioned that they take time until they...
Yeah, around 120 days for full release.
For full release?
Full release, yeah.
So can we argue that the strategic reserve is not fully released yet? Because the war hasn't even reached.
Even when the U.S. announced the 172 million barrels of the release, it will take months, not it's not a one-day operation. It takes months.
So it takes months. Is it a whole process, or until they release a bit?
Until they release the announced quantity.
The announced quantity, the full quantity.
Yeah, the full quantity, yes.
But after if we assume that they released it and then let's say it gave us about 20-ish days, do you think they would still rely on strategic reserves, or maybe that's not a sustainable strategy?
Okay, it is not a sustainable strategy, because still, if they want to release it from the SPRs, they are looking at the market condition as well. If we go back to 2022, when they announced the release of I think 187 million barrels, because just they want to compensate with the missing barrels caused by Ukrainian and Russian conflicts.
They lost the Russian crude at the time, right?
Yes, yes. They didn't complete the full amount of what they already announced, because the situation came back to a bit normal. So it depends. That's why they announced the release, and then it takes like a month to month, like assess the market condition.
Assess the market condition.
Yes.
But
yes.
the strategic reserves, we noticed that it does help ease the prices of oil. So is it may be used to that as well?
Okay, it is the prices, but for a very short time. If we want to compare the quantity, as I mentioned earlier, the daily demand equals to around 100 plus million barrel per day, and the 400 or say even the 572 million announced, it will not cover what were really lost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So these strategies are only, we can argue maybe these are short-term strategies that would put oil prices at low levels until the conflict eases and finishes. But it's not a long-term strategies.
Not low levels. It keeps like a ceiling on the price spike itself. The prices keep a ceiling. Yeah, it's like a cushion, like a ceiling, just to keep prices from further spikes.
Spikes.
Yes. Yeah.
Is it like, as we have been seeing, that prices have been going from 80 to 90 or 80 to 100? Is it, we can say that?
Not this range. Not this range. Yeah. When they announced the release, we're seeing prices stay for longer period, like a 1 or 2 days at almost the same level with just $2 to $3. This keeps a lid on the prices from further and higher spikes, around $10 to $15, as we saw it in the beginning of the war. Yeah.
And any escalation would increase the paper market price spike.
Yeah.
The paper market price.
Yeah.
And the paper market is usually run by the investors, not only medium to retail, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's clear. And now, before we wrap up, if we look ahead, Ms. Ghadeer, given the surge in oil prices, how do you expect this to feed in global inflation, and particularly in emerging markets? And could we see central banks delay or reverse cuts as a result?
Okay. The oil is a system-wide input. It is not only a commodity. So the transmission from higher oil prices to inflation is fast. And it comes in through 2 channels. The direct channel, fuel prices, direct on fuel prices, and this translated to immediate effect on CPI or the inflation rates. The second channel, the indirect one, include everything else: higher transportation prices, food prices, feedstock, industrial cost. This translated to or feeds to inflation and pass it to the end user. And as per the latest IMF report released in mid-April, the inflation could rise to 4.4% this year, and driven by high energy prices. For as a comparison between the advanced and emerging economies, the advanced economies, inflation could rise to 2.8%, while the emerging economies could rise to 5.8%.
Even higher.
Even higher, sharper. This is emerging economies CPI. There's a high share of the energy prices in CPI itself. That's why they hardest hit in these rising energy prices. Yeah,
that's clear.
Yeah, and on the other hand, we are looking at the GDP itself. The GDP could slow down this year from 3.4% last year to 3.1% this year because of the escalations. But unfortunately, the IMF assumed that the political tension it's contained and have a limited duration.
Yes.
For any further escalation, these figures will change dramatically.
They even put a severe scenario for inflation to be 6+% in severe scenarios.
Yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. Regarding the Middle East GDP, the Middle East GDP expected to fall to 1.9%, versus 3.6% last year, because we are a big producer of what really the global market needs.
Yeah. Well, that's clear. Ms. Ghadeer, we thank you for your time and this fruitful discussion that we had with you, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, dear viewers, this was Ms. Ghadeer Alenizi, a leading specialized market research analyst with us. We thank her for her time. Now, this brings us to the end of our live coverage. As for this evening, we conclude the picture that emerges as one of the regions and standing at the delicate crossroads where escalation and diplomacy continue to unfold side by side. From the Strait of Hormuz and its global implications to ongoing mediation efforts and shifting international positions, the coming days will be critical in determining whether the path ahead leads toward containment or further uncertainty. For the State of Kuwait, the priority remains clear: safeguarding stability, maintaining operational readiness, and ensuring the continuity of essential sectors amid a rapidly evolving landscape. For the time being, as global markets react and diplomatic channels remain active, one constant endures: the urgent need for de-escalation, dialogue, and a collective effort to preserve security in a region whose stability is vital not only to its people but to the world at large. We will continue to follow developments closely and bring you the latest updates as they unfold. Thank you for watching, stay safe, and goodbye.